Let's hear it again for Juston Street and Temple Baker. We have a tradition at Ebertfest. We give out the Golden Thumb. Juston Street, will you stand, please? This is a thumb modeled after Roger's thumb, and so we give it out actually very seriously at Ebertfest, and I'm very happy to present one to you tonight. Temple Baker, will you stand, please? Tonight, there are 2 thumbs up, and this is one for you. Stephen Feeder has been a friend of the festival. He's been here before, so he already has a golden thumb. And I'm actually going to turn the microphone over to you so that you can start.
You guys, thank you so much for coming and staying for the Q&A. And you know, I want you to know that this was such a thrill to be able to sit back and kind of watch it in this space, in which I did like an IUB musical and also took a lot of exams. I think I had Econ 101 or 100 in here or something. You know, first of all, I'll talk to the guys a little bit, just ask a couple questions of them, and then I want to turn it over to you if you guys have thoughts. Consider it an open forum. You can ask anything about the movie. I just want to give a huge amount of thanks and props right now to Richard Linklater, who sadly couldn't be here tonight. He really wanted to be here. He's been to Ebertfest in the past. He loves Chaz. He loves this festival. It means a lot to him. Sadly, and also positively, he was doing the Tonight Show tonight. So he's in New York, and so if you guys want to DVR that, he'll be on. You'll hear about the movie from his perspective. But so I think what's really interesting is that in a similar way to Days, he cast the movie in a way where he kind of did an exhaustive search looking for that next generation of performers. You may have recognized some of them who have been in some things. Tyler Hoechlin is in Teen Wolf. Wyatt Russell was in 22 Jump Street. He plays Willoughby. Glenn Powell, who plays Finnegan, is in Scream Queens. But a lot of them you might not have recognized. And these guys in particular are kind of up and coming. So I'd like for them to kind of turn it over and talk a little bit about the casting process.
Okay, well, I sort of am pretty much the luckiest person in the entire world. One of my buddies was forwarded an email for an open audition casting call looking for 18 to 23-year-old young men with a background in baseball that are also handsome and charismatic. So I just sort of showed up, and the casting call question was, do you have any funny stories from college? And I did. and the next thing I knew, I was getting to meet with, my, favorite director in the world, Richard Linklater, and then now I'm sitting here watching this, and it's been so surreal. I wake up every morning, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna wake up, but I haven't yet. So.
Yeah, I second everything you said. We were sitting up there watching it, and I think the best feeling is to listening to everybody enjoying it. You're like, yes, they're taking our movie, dude. This is cool. The little kid self inside of you is like, wow, how awesome is this? I mean, I was a baseball player and stopped playing baseball to follow my heart and to follow into an unknown pathway into arts. And nobody in my family and nobody I knew had any idea what I was doing. They just knew I was, that's Juston, you can let him do his thing, we'll see. Good luck. And, and it was a 2-year journey of people basically looking at you leaving a professional career in athletics, And they look at you and they think you're crazy, you know, because the world wants you to do what you're great at, you know, and you should have kept doing that. And I don't know, I just knew there was something else, something more, and found my way into one road, found my way into a football film, and then found my way into Richard Linklater's arms, you know. I was reading the script, and I guess this is cool. I read the script very first time, and I remember reading, yeah, you know, I had a stack of offers like this high, you know. Everybody wanted me, and I was just like, no. Like, please, I do not want to be Jay Niles of all people. Let me pump that out. And, you know, that's just the way life works, you know. Like, you don't want it, and then here you go. Good luck. And remember, Rick just said, hey, what do you think about Jay Niles? And I was like, you know. And I was just thinking in my head the whole time, like, don't turn red. Don't turn red. I was just feeling that heat, like, coming up, and I was like, how am I going to do this one, man? And then sure enough, you know, we got to all live together and work for a month and a half, and started peeling away the layers of this human being who would be saying all these wacky things. And next thing you know, he's a sweet kid who's just trying to fit in, doing it all wrong, you know? As you saw, he's crazy.
Justin, I have a question for you. What was the motivation for your character? What was the backstory of your character? I thought he was hilarious.
It all started at birth. Long-winded. My dad was long-winded. It was like, you know, anything on paper, he was like a guy who said he threw 95, who got in a fight and had a home run hit off him. And I was like, oh, God, you know, I know that guy. You know, that guy's for lack of any other more appropriate words, a douche. You know, that's what you would say nowadays, is he's a douche. The guy's a tool. But Rick said something interesting. We were meeting, and he said, I want him likable. And then when I was leaving, he goes, hey, Justin, he has early onset psychosis. And I was like, okay. And literally for 2 days, I was like, holy crap, what did he tell me? What was it? Psychotic? Like, I couldn't think of it, and finally it came up. And so I just started, like, just living curious, you know, living curious. And he was originally in Chicago, Detroit, so I was like, I remember happening upon Studio 54, and I was like, oh, dude, I'm polyester. I'm ahead of the game. I'm coming down to Texas, I'm ahead of the game. And then I met a guy from Chicago one day, and he goes, hey, I like your shirt. I'm like, was that a compliment? Like, thank you? Like, that was really rude. That was the most rude kind. And then I was like, oh my God. I was a kid who grew up with these guys who taught me all the wrong ways to fit in. And like, that's so life in college. You show up and you're like, you and all your stuff, and it's awesome. And everybody's like, what are you doing, you weirdo? And you're like, what do you mean? I'm cool. And they're like, no, that's not cool at all. That's weird, you know? And so you have to figure it out and shake it up. But yeah, it's just layers and layers. Pete Rose is my favorite baseball player. Modeled my hair after him.
I think one of my favorite things that happened in, you know, the whole time we've done this was we were sitting there at Rick's Ranch recently, about probably 3 weeks ago after South by, and so, you know, some of these characters are based on real guys, and the real plumber is still around, and he's a complete crazy person. Like, he's insane. And he's sitting there, and it's probably 2 in the afternoon, and he is hammered. Justin, Austin Emilio, who played Nesbitt, and I are sitting around listening to this guy talk. He looks at Justin, he just starts laughing. He's like, oh man, Jay's gonna kill you. We're like, what? That's inappropriate. You better sleep with one eye open for the rest of your life, because if that guy ever sees this movie, you're gonna die. And he gets me in Austin, he's like, look at this guy. He's gonna die.
We thought he was joking. We're like, oh, you're so funny. Yeah, you know, he's gonna kill you wherever he is. We don't know. And he goes, no, take a look at his eyes.
That's a dead man.
That is the last time you're gonna see that dead man's soul right there. He's dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth pointing out that part of this background is that this is semi-autobiographical for Rick. Rick went to college on a baseball scholarship in 1980. He was a freshman. He played at Sam Houston State University, and they lived in these houses off campus. I had the fortunate experience to be able to go down to Sam Houston with him, and he took me around and he showed some of the actual locations of what inspired this story. So a lot of times during filming, he would have some of his teammates come down and visit set and kind of give them the opportunity. Now this is very, a lot of these things happen to him. All these characters are loosely based on these people. It's just inspired by, his experience, but his teammates got a real kick out of being down there. The other thing that they were alluding to that you might not be aware of either is that part of Rick's process is that he has a script. And the script is a fully formed concept. It has all of the scenes. It has all the characters that he wants. And he casts based on that. And then he brings these guys, and a lot of times he does this with a lot of his films, regardless of how many people are in it. But they all stayed on he has a ranch outside of Austin, Texas, in an area called Bastrop. And he has a bunkhouse. And all these guys, all 12 of them, lived in the bunkhouse. In the morning, they would practice baseball. They would take disco dance lessons. And then they would pour through the script. And they would change it. And they would try and make each other laugh. And they would improvise a little bit. And all the while, Rick would be taking notes while this was all happening. If a line that he wrote wasn't working and the guys weren't laughing, he would cross it out, and they wouldn't even know this. And as they would improvise, if he heard laughter, he would write it down. And the next day, they'd have another script, and that scene that he had written 7 years ago and thought was funny had now been replaced by something that these guys brought to the table. And that is the genius of Richard Linklater. That's what he does. He finds ways to create characters and make them real, and allows these actors to be able to perform in a very special way, so that it feels authentic. At least, to me. Hopefully, it does to you.
Even on like the smallest stuff, it was crazy that you wouldn't even realize that he was listening to stuff because he'd just kind of sit there and he's sort of an ethereal dude, just sort of not totally the most engaged, it doesn't seem. And then the smallest things will show up in the next script that you didn't even realize you noticed, like my character's name being Tyrone. That was never a thing, and I just said it once as a joke, and now the character's name is Tyrone forever. Just stuff like that.
I could talk about the film forever, but if there are questions that you guys have, I know it's getting late and it's a Tuesday night, and I can't thank you guys enough, students and community members and people, part of the faculty here that came out. Really thank you for being here. This is really cool for me to have seen it with an audience like this. If you guys have questions, jump up, shout them out. Come up, there's a microphone here too if you want.
Was Pete Ward based on a real baseball player? Because there was a Pete Ward that played for the Chicago White Sox in the 60s.
That's funny. No, it actually wasn't. I think that's a coincidence. But as a White Sox fan, I am aware of Pete Ward. No, Pete Ward was just something that, again, the fuckwittery that these guys would do with each other was just another example of how they would mess with one another. But yeah, Pete Ward was just the guy that Rick, I think, had come up with.
So this is more of a statement. So Megan Ellison, CEO of Ebertfest Pictures, is the daughter of Larry Ellison, a former student here. He obviously didn't graduate. But would it be fantastic if they're bringing up these really awesome pictures, small pictures like her and Zero Dark 30 that ended up winning all these awards? What if Annapurna maybe sponsored some sort of student film event here for students here at U of I? Because there's all these fantastic artistic voices, but we're in the Midwest, so it can be a little difficult to spread a wings and apply. And I just think that would be something excellent for Annapurna to maybe consider.
Well, I
Ebertfest sponsor that too. That's a great idea.
I think that this is a wonderful, this is the first time that I've been able to come here with a movie, that was something that Annapurna had done, and I hope that this is just the beginning of a really wonderful relationship that we have, not just with the university, but with Ebertfest as well. I meant it when I said, in particular, Roger is somebody who is the reason why I even am here, And the University of Illinois, in particular for me, it's Megan's money, it's her thing. But for me, and I think it's a great connection with Larry too, this is everything to me. Being able to come back here like this is pretty special and cool. I never thought that I would end up being able to be, and I echo these guys' experiences just in being cast, but to be able to work with someone as special as Richard Linklater is something that I would never have dreamed of. And some of the other filmmakers that we get to work with in Annapurna. So I think it's a wonderful idea, and I hope that this is the beginning of something that could be very special.
I love it.
And will you actually write it in a more concrete form and submit it to us? Okay, thank you. And I would love to have you come back. I'm glad that you came with this movie, and I can't, when I think of Her, that's the movie I know that Roger would have absolutely loved. I like all of the movies that you've done so far, and I can see coming back to the film festival and having some sort of partnership. So I like that idea.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the production design and the music clearances? Because the film has a great sense of time and place. And I haven't been to that disco, but I've been to one just like it. It was really sort of, there's an authenticity, and I really want to give a shout out to those people who helped physically make the film feel real to us.
That's awesome.
Well, our production designer, Bruce Curtis, is an absolute genius. Just walking onto set every day. And the disco is crazy enough, but even stuff as little as that scene where we're walking through campus, about to register for class. And you get there, and I don't think I shot it all that day, and I get dropped off on set, and you look around, because you're walking through Texas State campus in San Marcos, and it's 2015, and you're walking through, and then you turn a corner, and it's bam. You're in 1980, and it's immediate, and I really can't tell you enough how trippy it is to all of a sudden be walking through 2015 and then just be in 1980, like Carter, college Republicans for Carter, or Democrats for Carter, I can't remember which one. Plummer was not a political science major. But and just the clothes and just looking around at these huge armies of extras, like all wearing these crazy period clothes, and the music was all so on point, and yeah.
I can talk a little bit about the music too, because on the production side, that was crazy. There are 43 songs in the movie, and that is insane. And on top of it, what normally doesn't happen is because in a production, you're not sure how much things are going to cost, so you're very careful about licensing things. But Rick wrote into the script, they're going to do Rapper's Delight. So you got to clear that even before you start shooting, because that's a huge scene in there. And then beyond Rapper's Delight, they're singing in their house party to Parliament Funkadelic. So that needed to be cleared ahead of time. And then Willoughby is talking about in this Get High scene while Fearless is playing, I think. So all of these things had to be cleared. Certain things had to be cleared ahead of time. The music was insane. And one of the things that Rick talks about, and he makes a joke about how, well, there were some songs that we wanted that we couldn't get. Like we wanted a Michael Jackson song, but if we couldn't get Michael Jackson, we got Jermaine Jackson. So Let's Get Serious, which was a great song. And for him, it's like he wanted to have the songs that were playing on the radio. So like there are deeper cuts of the Knack that he could have put on, but My Sharona was playing on the radio in 79 and 80, and that was the jam. It would be like if you were listening to Bieber in the car now. The Knack is better than Bieber, but people know Bieber, right? That's what's playing on the radio.
Hey, that new Bieber album's a banger.
People really love that album. So the music was a huge thing. And then also, even with disco, it's like the guys back when Rick was going to discos, it's like nobody wanted to admit that they kind of dug the music. Everybody wanted to be like, oh, this is shit. But it kind of is infectious, you kind of dig it. And the other thing that these guys had to learn, which I'm sure a lot of the students can attest to, is like when you go to clubs and bars, like no one actually dances with people, right? You kind of like dance by yourself next to someone. But, you know, people used to ask someone to dance and go and dance with them. And so that was part of the fun of that era. And this was kind of like, the 80s, as we know it, kind of started in like 82, 83. This was the end of the 70s. This is right before conservatism kind of kicked in a little bit more and things got a little bit clamped down. This was a really free, kind of interesting period in history.
Pre-AIDS, pre-Just Say No. Yeah, that's all I got.
But yeah. And a lot of the costumer, a lot of the crew has been with Rick for 25 years as he's made films. Same crew as Dazed and Confused. He's a loyalist. He loves who he works with. He loves telling stories. He loves movies, and you know, I think it comes across in the way he's able to execute them.
In fact, that made me think of another question for you two. Did Rick have you watch Dazed and Confused before, so you could see those a little bit about those characters before you did this?
No, we watched, when we went out to his ranch, we watched a bunch of movies, you know, like Animal House. What was the Italian movie he had us watch? Because he wanted to teach us about just being swagger, you know, and so he had us watch this obscure, you know, Italian movie where this one guy just basically marches through the whole thing, just like totally stoked. You're like, this guy's having the best day of his life. And he was like, yeah, that's kind of what it was like every day, you know, back then, you know? And yeah, Breaking Away, Dennis Quaid. I mean, we watched a documentary on Doc Ellis, who pitched a whole no-hitter on LSD. Just learned about the era. Yeah. Yeah.
I want them to talk about it. I don't want you to hear me talk about it.
Well, the thing that made it really cool. I mean, like people always say, "What was it like working with Richard Linklater?" And I say to be fully respected and set free as an artist. You know, I mean, he literally, we would walk into a big room full of clothes, and we got to pick whatever we wanted, and you just show up to set, and he'd go, "Oh, cool, great." You know, he just really let us, you know, like you name it, hair, glasses. For me personally, he just let me go. But when we first came out to the ranch, like he just gets it. He's like a true coach that you always wish you had. You know, we show up, and before we show up, he writes this long letter that you get from, at that point, Richard Linklater, that said, "We want you to know that you are the guy for your role. So just own that and get it. And you're the guy. You got it. So let that be free so we can play and you're not trying to like stress out in this thing." And then he said, "Don't memorize the script, because if you do, this whole thing's gonna suck. You know, put it into your own words and let's play and have fun."
And the email was titled "An Invitation to Collaborate and Create." So I mean, if you can imagine coming in, you know, I speak for Street too, and I said we're both Austin boys, so we both grew up watching Linklater's movies. So you know, to get that sort of vote of confidence going into something from a guy that's, you know, 1,000,000 times more qualified than I'll ever be in my entire life. And yet he's still totally willing to work with us, you know, not only take our ideas in, but consider them almost as an equal, you know, like to actually, seriously, you know, if you had a good idea, you would shoot it. Like he would literally, like, I was like, it's crazy, you know, you'd be, just come up with like this little idea and you'd tell it to Rick, and then 3 hours later you'd be shooting it. It's wild.
Yeah, you just were set free, and then you blinked, and it was 3.5 months later, and we were rapping, and we're like, "What? No,
Come back.
that was so fun!" Like, just we genuinely played the whole time, and that's like where your art is best, is when you're in that relaxed, free, open state, you know.
And from an outsider's perspective, I will say they were it was a true team atmosphere. What you saw, like, they're the closest people I've ever met. They can't get enough of each other. And when it felt right for another person to have a line, they would let the other person have it. You know, you don't see that, at least, you know, where I come from and the film sets that I've been on. You don't see that very often, you know, selflessness for the greater good of the film.
Well, someone else had a question out there. Yep, you.
Which I love, which is more serious, particularly philosophical. And even with this movie where it seems just like the college life, but it really with the Ella character where he starts thinking about which path he wants to choose. And just looking at your credentials, that you were an economics major, but now you're an executive producer. So how did you experience that direction?
Well, so, yeah, so she's asking, you know, in a beautiful way, comparing my life to this brilliant movie about how do I find my place in the world like they were looking for theirs. I was a media studies major here at Illinois. So media studies at the time was a 2-year major when I was here. Now you can be in it for 4. And I didn't know, you know, now that you can have it for 4 years, I think maybe I wouldn't have needed or felt like I wanted to go to graduate school, maybe. Because I always knew I wanted to do something in media. And a professor here recommended the London School of Economics, which is where then I ended up going. And my studies were media related still, but it was the London School of Economics, so you got a little bit of a business, you know, approach to it, which was helpful. And I always knew like it would be something that I could fall back on. But then I came back home to Chicago. I grew up in Skokie, and you know, I didn't know much about what existed other than what was on the surface in terms of like opportunities. And to me, when I came back, this was in 2003 or 4 or whatever, it was like what I knew was Jerry Springer and Oprah Winfrey. Those were the 2 things I knew that shot in Chicago. So Oprah Winfrey to me sounded a little boring. So I was like, I'll work for Springer. So I did whatever I could to find an avenue in to work at the Jerry Springer Show. And it was that first experience where I can tell you stories in another venue about how it was working on that show. But I met a lot of people just doing that who knew just a season, so not very long. And then like dog years, you have to measure your time at Jerry Springer. So like 1 = 7 years. I'm like a 72-year-old man right now, especially after working for Springer and then Sacha Baron Cohen. But yeah, so my work at Springer introduced me to other people that knew more about what was going on in Chicago at the time, and I learned about other companies. And so I was able to go from then Springer, broadening my understanding of what existed, to another company in Chicago. And then from there, I started building a little bit more of a breadth of experience working in documentary television and film. And then I was able to work on a comedy, semi-improvised show in a documentary style format. And that gave me enough confidence then to do the shift to LA and to try and make it in LA, knowing that like I think I had kind of peaked in opportunity in Chicago. So then I went from Chicago to LA and worked my butt off as hard as I could. I tell this to a lot of the people that I talked to in the last couple days in classes, but you know, people who go to LA and they go to school at UCLA and USC, they do have an advantage, right? Because they can go in their spare time to intern at companies and they can learn a lot because there's a lot of stuff that's happening there. But people from the Midwest, they work hard, right? And in order to get to that place, you have to work twice as hard as them. And whenever I see someone who comes in to interview at Annapurna, if they're from Chicago, to me that means they had to work really hard even to get to that moment. And you know they're not going to stop working hard. And I'm not saying like USC and UCLA students would feel an entitlement or like an ease, but they might not have to feel like they need to work as hard as we do. And I think that that's something that's cultivated here at the university and really special about being from the Midwest and having that, whether it's a chip on your shoulder or whatever it is, that mentality, that Midwestern work ethic that really does, I think, take people into a gear that a lot of people don't know about. And we're nice too.
You'll definitely be invited back. Oh, we have one more question.
I was in that Max 295 class. I talked to you about breaking in as somebody who didn't go to one of the major schools in like not one of the concentrations, and you suggested that when you suggested options for me, you suggested options as a producer, but really I'm more interested in writing, as an aspiring writer. Juston, who's in an economics program in Illinois, how do I break in?
If you write and you create a lot, that's a great way. I wish I could write. What a discipline. It's an unbelievably tough thing to do. Having stuff is huge. Most people go out to LA and they don't have anything written. You're like, I want to be a writer. And they don't know what the discipline is to write. If you already have things packaged and ready to go and like something that you can show people, you're already ahead of the game. And an economics background is just a way to round yourself out. It's a way to be able to present and understand things that probably a lot of people can't, and I think that's really beneficial. Everybody who goes out to LA, everyone has a dream of what they want to do, and I think if you're smart and you're driven, and you do the prep work, like writing, and you have a portfolio of things that you're proud of and that you love, you'll succeed, because it's a place that thrives on good ideas and material. And people that have good ideas and material that are driven and motivated, I really do believe succeed in that business, because there's so much. I mean, think of the amount of media that you consume a day. It's insane, right? I mean, it's like you're on your phones, you're on your laptop, you're on your TV, you go to the movies. It's so much, it's constant. And so I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there for people, especially if they're talented and focused and driven. LA, New York, I mean, I started in Chicago because I'm a risk-averse person, right? So I was scared to just go out and do it right away. And I don't think I'm unlike a lot of people. I think it's a scary thing.
How long have you been in LA?
I 10 years with 2 years, 1.5 years about New York, in kind of going back and forth.
What about, Juston or Temple, you're from Texas? Austin. Austin.
People from Austin also work hard. It's true, yeah. Yeah, dude, you're in the middle of the country. Everybody in Austin thinks Austin's really cool until you get to LA and they don't care at all. They're like, what, you did some movies in Austin? Who cares?
Your shirt doesn't have a single hole in it.
Yeah. And then you're like, no, it's an artist's shirt. I'm not homeless. Yet. What were we saying? What were we talking? Oh, coming from Texas? I mean, it was cool being able to shoot in your own backyard. I mean, I got to go like, hey guys, I'll show you some really cool swimming holes. Like, cause the vibe of this is kind of like the topography and like feel of Austin in a way, That's where like when I came in, I was like, perfect. I'm like already a hippie and I'm chill. And then he's like, Jay Niles. I'm like, oh my God, what? No. But yeah, I mean, it's like, in Austin, everybody's heard of Dazed and Confused. Everybody knows about the Moon Tower right over there. I lived right like a block and a half from it. We're all like, there's the Moon Tower, y'all. We're kind of cool. There's a burger joint, over there top notch. And so that was our original like calling card to like famous thing. We're like, Austin has Dazed and Confused. Before everybody moved there and like turned it into Hipsterville. I just have a beard for fun, but I don't know. I mean, it was perfect to get to go back home and work with somebody who's been just such an icon and just such a cool person. I mean, he's opening 2 art house theaters in Austin. And he's like somebody who's like, that's why we're so pumped. I mean, when we saw like everybody here, we were like, what? Yes! Because we were like, maybe there's going to be 7. Hopefully there's not just 7 or 8.
Might just be us.
And we'll be like, hey, you guys want to watch it with us?
We could ask each other questions.
Yeah, it's cool. Because this is the kind of movie, like, that, like, I mean, as an artist, you know, like a character-driven comedy that's not like some cheeky multi-cam thing that's trying to just be cheap and dirty. I mean, granted, we were dirty, but like in a different, hopefully cool way.
Not over the top, like, you know, it's not American Pie or Project X.
Over the top in a different way, maybe.
These types of screenings are really important. The only reason I want to say this is because we need word of mouth to get people into seats in the theater. It's a big deal. It's hard to get people into the theater now, you know, especially when you have 65-inch televisions at home. So we want, if you like the movie, talk about it. Tell people to go see it, because it's the way that we are able to keep cinema like this special and people going to it. You know, it's harder and harder to get movies like this. You know, it takes somebody like a Megan Ellison to come in and do it, because the studios don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, this isn't Transformers
Is there a
8.
particular hashtag, or if people write about it on social media or talk about it, do you have a particular hashtag, or what should they? Any particular?
Hashtag everybody wants some. I think the Twitter handle is @EWSmovie. Yeah, just talk it up,
Yeah.
you know?
I was gonna say, like, how much fun is it when you watch it with a big group of people, you know? Because once one person, like, who's the crazy loud laughing person in the back, you're like, well, that's great, you know? Like, there's a group of people coming together to watch a movie and laugh together, you know? Like, where do we get to do that very often? You know, it's like we don't have that as much in our culture. We're all so separate, individual, pursuing our own individual, you know, fan-like thing, you know? And, like, I think it's just so cool. Like, I mean, when I first met with Rick, he was like, you know, we almost didn't get the movie made. And I'm like, Richard Linklater almost didn't get a movie made? He's like, yeah, we almost didn't get the funding, you know, until y'all, I think, showed up or something, right? And you're like, geez, that's insane that somebody like him, who's such an amazing storyteller, is having a hard time getting funding to make movies, you know? And I'm like, man, like, if you dug it, and you just, like, remind your friends it's a lot more fun to go with a group to a theater and enjoy something like this. It's like an old school feeling.
I got to find out when it's coming down to Champaign in particular. Yeah. Right on.
Art theater, know about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, somebody
Co-op
was talking
art
about
theater.
that this afternoon. I think we're going to try and make sure that we get it down here in some capacity. I mean, and you know what, I will say, even though I know the studios don't necessarily love financing these types of movies themselves, Paramount has been incredible in terms of helping us get this movie out and doing whatever they can to help us build momentum for the film. So I do want to say, like, you know, we need the help because we're not a distributor, so we always have to partner with studios, and Paramount's been a really wonderful partner on this one. So a big
We
kudos
love
to them.
Paramount.